Hello, everyone. It's me, Ari Dawson, Comrade Sheet. I'm an anthropologist and sociologist. Thank you for being here. Hit the like button, share this live stream, subscribe to the channel, become a member of the channel, and don't forget, donate in the links below. If you want to contribute to the fund of my PhD, write PhD with your donation. Thank you very much. And of course, you can always check my books on Amazon. I have many novels. You can check them all out. All right. So, okay. Thank you all for being here. Hold on, let me see what I can. No, this is perfectly fine. For those who are here, please let me know if you can hear me well in the live chat. Meanwhile, I'll check it out myself too. One moment on my mobile phone. Wait, hold on. I always do this to make sure that I'm audible. All right. So hold on. Hold on. Yes, the live stream is streaming, as you can see. Let me check. Yeah, the live stream is streaming, as you can see. Okay, you can all hear me. That's good. Okay, the topic of today is the background of this oh Palestine-Israel conflict that goes on over there, which has intensified since since the 7th of October 2023, when this when Hamas launched its attack on Israel. So I wanted to go to the origins of how this conflict came into be. Without the religious zeal I see in a lot of people, especially speaking to a lot of Christian Zionists, man, they have a lot of zeal. They're so pro-Israel, but often we ask them key questions and show some, curiosity because you question certain things. Some of them begin to gaslight you, or they lose their mind, begin to attack you. I'm not into any of that. I'm an anthropologist and I'm a sociologist, and I have a background in international relations. So I want to look at this from an anthropological, sociological, and historical point of view to show you how this all came into being. And I found some interesting stuff. So that's what we're about to do now. Um, so, okay. I need to share my screen with you. So hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Before I share my screen, let me ask you one question. How many of you heard of the Balfour Declaration before? Let me know. How many of you ever heard of the Balfour Declaration before? Let me know in the live chat. I'm just curious. Well, you should have known of it because the consequences of this Balfour Declaration affects the daily life of many people today. But for some reason, a lot of people don't even know what this is about. And I'm thinking to myself, hold on a minute. You guys are pro a certain country, but you don't even know the origins that brought that country into being? Really? That does not give an intelligent impression, does it? So let's start. I'm going to share my screen. Hold on, can you all hear me? Hold on, let me share the screen. Let's go over here. Yes, I should be able to share it now. Okay, can you all see my screen? Let me know, please. This live stream may take a little longer than usual because I'm going through it with you all. Can you all see my screen clearly? Let me make this a little bigger. Okay, you can see my screen now. Let's read. The Balfour Declaration was a public statement issued by the British government in 1917 during the First World War, announcing its support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, then an Ottoman region with a small minority Jewish population. Hold on. In Palestine, okay. The declaration was contained in a letter dated on the 2nd of November 1917 from the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to Lord Rothschild. Why call them Lord? They're not God. But anyway, a leader of the British Jewish community for transmission to the Zionist Federation of Great Britain and Ireland. The text of the declaration was published in the press on the 9th of November 1917. Okay? Now we're going to read this declaration, and I have it over here. Okay, let's read it. Okay, let me make this a bit bigger. Okay. November the 2nd, 1917. Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which have been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet. His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. Yours sincerely, Arthur James Balfour. His Majesty's government. In the United Kingdom, the government is named after the king or queen sitting on the throne. So in Palestine, hold on a minute, but I thought a lot of Christian Zionists were saying Palestine never existed. What? Okay, let's continue. Immediately following Britain's declaration of war on the Ottoman Empire in November 1914. First, what is the Ottoman Empire? Okay, let me go, because I have it somewhere here. Yeah, Ottoman Empire. What is the Ottoman Empire? What was the Ottoman Empire? Look. Let's go above. The Ottoman Empire, historically and colloquially known as the Turkish Empire, was an imperial realm that spanned much of Southeast Europe, West Asia, and North Africa from the 14th till the early 20th century. It also controlled parts of Southeast and Central Europe during the early 16th and early 18th century. The empire emerged from a beylik or principality founded in northwestern Anatolia in 1299 by the Turkoman tribal leader Osman I. His successors conquered much of Anatolia and expanded into the Balkans in the mid-14th century, transforming their petty kingdom into a transcontinental empire. The Ottomans ended the Byzantine Empire. Well, Byzantine Empire is actually how the Romans in the East were called later by historians, because the Eastern Roman Empire never called themselves Byzantine Empire. They called themselves Roman Empire. So the Ottomans ended the East Roman Empire with the conquest of Constantinople in 1453 by Mehmed II. That was a sultan, which marked the Ottomans' emergence as a major regional power. Under Suleiman the Magnificent, the empire reached the peak of its power, prosperity, and political development. By the start of the 17th century, the Ottomans presided over 32 provinces and numerous vassal states. Over time, which over time were either absorbed into the empire or granted various degrees of autonomy. With its capital at Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, and control over significant portions of the Mediterranean basin, the Ottoman Empire was at the center of interaction between the Middle East and Europe for 6 centuries. All right? And you can see this is how the Ottoman Empire began over here. This is how it grew eventually. Well, look at this, how far it went. Again, it grew further into what today the present day Ukraine. It slowly began to decline, and in 1914, this was left of it. And it's in 1914 that the British declared war against the Ottoman Empire, and had to do with also the First World War that was developing in Europe. Okay? Okay? Let's read. While the Ottoman Empire was once thought to have entered a period of decline after the death of Suleiman the Magnificent, modern academic consensus posits that the empire continued to maintain a flexible and strong economy, society, and however, during a long period of peace from 1740 to 1768, the Ottoman military system fell behind those of its chief European rivals, the Habsburg and Russian empires. The Ottomans consequently suffered severe military defeats in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, culminating the loss of both territory and global prestige. This prompted a comprehensive process of reform and modernization known as the Tanzimat. Over the course of the 19th century, the Ottoman state became vastly more powerful and organized internally, despite suffering further territorial losses, especially in the Balkans, with a number of new states emerging. So, in short, the Ottoman Empire was a regional power. Okay, and let's go over here. It was the state religion was Sunni Islam, so there was an Islamic empire also, even though you had Christians living there and people from other religions. But anyway, it was an Islamic power that dominated much of international politics for a long time. Okay, and it was near its decline in the early 20th century. Okay, now let's read this. In the aftermath of World War I, the victorious Allied powers occupied and partitioned the Ottoman Empire, which lost its southern territories to the United Kingdom and France. The successful Turkish War of Independence, led by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk against the occupying allies, led to the emergence of the Republic of Turkey, today called Turkey, in the Anatolian heartland, and abolition of the Ottoman monarchy in 1922, formally ending the Ottoman Empire. So who broke the Ottoman Empire apart? It were the British and the French after the First World War. And the partition happened from the 30th of October 1918 to the 1st of February 1922. Okay, here you can see they were dividing the place, as you can see. But long before the First World War ended, and before the partition happened, let's read further. Because I told you we're going deep into it. In meaning of the Britain's declaration of war on the Ottoman Empire in November 1914, it began to consider the future of Palestine. Within 2 months, a memorandum was circulated to the War Cabinet by a Zionist member, Herbert Samuel, proposing the support of Zionist ambitions in order to enlist the support of Jews in the wider war. A committee was established in April 1915 by British Prime Minister H.H. Asquith, I may pronounce it badly, to determine their policy towards the Ottoman Empire, including Palestine. Asquith, who had favored post-war reform of the Ottoman Empire, resigned in December 1916. His replacement, David Lloyd George, favored the partition of the empire. Hold on. So who initiated to break what was left of the Ottoman Empire apart? Was a British Prime Minister. The first negotiation between the British and the Zionists. Hold on a minute, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. So you mean to tell me that the British decided to break up the Turkish Empire and they were discussing this with the Zionists? So they didn't discuss this with the Ottomans themselves, nor with the local leaders in the provinces? Okay. Took place at a conference on 7th February 1917 that included Sir Mark Sykes and the Zionist leadership. Subsequent discussions led to Balfour's request on 9th of June that Rothschild and Chaim Weizmann submit a draft of a public declaration. Further drafts were discussed by the British cabinet during September and October, with input from Zionist and anti-Zionist Jews, but with no representation from the local population in Palestine. Whoa! So you mean to tell me that the British decided that they're going to decide the future of Palestine, which was a region of the Ottoman Empire, without discussing with the Ottomans who governed the governed area, without the local population of Palestine? So they there in London made a decision without even discussing the decision with the people that it would affect? Yes, that's what they did. By late 1917, in the lead up to the Balfour Declaration, the wider war had reached a stalemate, with two of Britain's allies not fully engaged. The United States had yet to suffer a casualty, and the Russians were in the midst of revolution with the Bolsheviks taking over the government. A stalemate in southern Palestine was broken by the Battle of Beersheba on the 31st of October 1917. The release of the final declaration was authorized on the 31st of October. The preceding cabinet discussion had referenced perceived propaganda benefits amongst the worldwide Jewish community for the Allied war effort. So they were looking for support for what they were about to do. The opening verse of the declaration represented the first public expression for support for Zionism by a major political power. The term national home had no precedent in international law and was intentionally vague as to whether a Jewish state was contemplated. The intended boundaries of Palestine were not specified, and the British government later confirmed that the words in Palestine meant that a Jewish national home was not intended to cover all of Palestine. The second half of the declaration was added to satisfy opponents of the policy, which had claimed it would otherwise prejudice the position of the local population of Palestine and encourage anti Semitism worldwide by stamping the Jews as strangers in their native lands. The declaration called for safeguarding the civil and religious rights of the Palestinian Arabs, or you can say Palestinians, who compose the vast majority of the local population, and also the rights and political status of the Jewish communities in other countries outside of Palestine. The British government acknowledged in 1939 that the local population's wishes and interests should have been taken into account, and recognized in 2017 that the declaration should have called for the protection of the Palestinian Arabs' political rights. So in 1939, they thought, oh, hey, wait, we should have consulted with the Palestinians living there. And 2017, that's way after the establishment of the State of Israel and all that other stuff happened. Now they say, well, we should have done better. Okay, the declaration had many long-lasting consequences. It greatly increased popular support for Zionism within Jewish communities worldwide, and became a core component of the British mandate for Palestine to the founding document of mandatory Palestine. It indirectly led to the emergence of the State of Israel and is considered a principal cause for the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Often described as the world's most intractable conflict, controversy remains over a number of areas, such as whether the declaration contradicted early promises the British made to the Sharif of Mecca in the McMahon Hussein correspondence. Wow. Just wow. So, the Zionist Federation of Great Britain and Ireland. Let me see. Here. The Zionist Federation of Great Britain and Ireland, also known as the British Zionist Federation, or simply the Zionist Federation, is an umbrella organization for the Zionist movement in the United Kingdom, representing more than 30 organizations and over 50,000 affiliated members. It was established in 1899 to campaign for a permanent homeland for the Jewish people. The organization was established in 1899 to campaign for a permanent homeland for the Jewish people. In 1917, the British Foreign Secretary Sir Arthur Balfour communicated the Balfour Declaration to the leader of the United Kingdom's Jewish community, Lord Rothschild, for transmission to the Zionist Federation. In 1920, the Zionist Federation founded Women's International Zionist Movement, WIZO, and Karen Isiot. The Zionist Federation also founded a number of Zionist youth movements. Okay? Now, let's look at this. So let's do with Zionism, and let's go to what Zionism is. Zionism, derived from Zion, is a nationalist movement. Nationalism is about establishing a nation. It's a national movement that emerged in Europe. Wait, I thought it emerged in Palestine. No, it emerged in Europe. So Zionism is a European creation. In the late 19th century, aiming for the establishment of a homeland for the Jewish people, particularly in Palestine, a region roughly corresponding to the land of Israel in Jewish tradition. Following the establishment of the State of Israel, Zionism became an ideology that supports the development and protection of Israel as a Jewish state. It has also been described as Israel's national or state ideology. So today is the state ideology of the State of Israel, and it began as a nationalist movement in Europe. Zionism initially emerged in Central and Eastern Europe as a national revival movement in the late 19th century in reaction to the newer waves of anti-Semitism and as a consequence of the Hashkalah or Jewish Enlightenment. Throughout the first decade of Zionist movement, some Zionist figures, including Theodor Herzl, support a Jewish state in several places such as Uganda, actually parts of British East Africa today in Kenya, Argentina, Cyprus, Mesopotamia, Mozambique, and the Sinai Peninsula. So they were looking for places all over the earth to establish Jewish homeland. But then most leaders of the movement associated the main goal with creating the desired homeland in Palestine, then part of the Ottoman Empire. This process was seen by the emerging Zionist movement as an ingathering of exiles, an effort to put stop to the exodus and persecutions that marked Jewish history by the bringing of the Jewish people back to their historic homeland. From 1897 to 1948, the primary goal of the Zionist movement was to establish the basis for a Jewish homeland in Palestine, and thereafter to consolidate it. In a unique variation of the principle of self-determination, the Lords of Zion unite in 1884, and in 1897, the first Zionist Congress was organized. In the late 19th, early 20th centuries, a large number of Jews immigrated to first Ottoman, later Mandatory Palestine. Hold on. At the same time, some international recognition and support was gained, notably in the 1970 Balfour Declaration by the United Kingdom. Since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, Zionism has continued primarily to advocate on behalf of Israel and to address threats to its continued existence and security. Zionism has never been a uniform movement. Its leaders, parties, and ideologies frequently diverge from one another. Compromise and concessions were made in order to achieve a shared cultural and political objective as a result of the growing anti-Semitism and yearning to return to historical homelands. All right? And this guy, Theodor Herzl, was the founder of the modern Zionist movement. In his 1896 pamphlet, Der Judenstaat, the Jewish state, the German Jewish state, he envisioned the founding of a future independent Jewish state during the 20th century. You see him over here. But okay, you keep seeing the Balfour Declaration. So it's clear the present state of Israel is the result of a British effort on behalf of the Zionist movement to break up the Ottoman Empire and to establish a Jewish country in Palestine. Okay? But as mentioned before, they did not negotiate this with the Arabs who were living there. Okay? So let's go back over here. And by the way, what you see here was a passport. a Palestinian passport, British passport, and the dominion was Palestine. Okay, now let's continue. It mentioned a memorandum that someone wrote, and this was before the Balfour Declaration, and there were a lot of discussions of it, and this memorandum was more like to, you know, it was like a lobby, but like a propaganda for the British Empire to, to push for this colonization of Palestine. That's really what it comes down to. Now, I'm not going to read all of it because you can look up this for yourself also. But let's go over here. Okay. Let the Jewish center be established in Palestine. Let it achieve, as I believe it would achieve, a spiritual, intellectual greatness, and insensibly, but inevitably, the character of the individual Jew, where he might be, would be ennobled. The sordid associations which have attached to the Jewish name would be slaughtered off, and the value of the Jews as an element in the civilization of the European peoples would be enhanced. The Jewish brain is a psychological product not to be despised. For 15 centuries, the race produced in Palestine a consistent succession of greater men, statesmen and prophets, judges and soldiers. If a body be again given in which its soul can lodge, it may again enrich the world. Till full scope is granted, as Macaulay said in the House of Commons, let us not presume to say there is no genius amongst the countrymen of Isaiah, no heroism amongst the descendants of the Maccabees. But anyway, so look at this. The value of the Jews as an element in the civilization of the European peoples will be enhanced. So this is not about declaration, but this the future of Palestine piece of propaganda that was written. It had the goal to improve the, I would say, the respect or the prestige of the Jewish people in Europe. All right, so let's move this out of the way. Let's move this also. This Arthur Balfour. He was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom for a while, then became Secretary of State. And again, you can look up much about him yourself. Okay. Let's move this out of the way. There was the British Empire, which governed a big portion of the world. Eventually, also took this part from the Ottoman Empire also. So let's move this out of the way also. So let's go over here. The mandate for Palestine was a League of Nations mandate for British administration of the territories of Palestine and Transjordan, both of which have been conceded by the Ottoman Empire following the end of World War I in 1918. The mandate was assigned by Britain by the San Remo Conference in April 1920 after France's concession in the 1918 Clemenceau-Lloyd-George Agreement of the previous agreed international administration of Palestine under the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Transjordan was added to the mandate after the Arab kingdom in Damascus was toppled by the French in the Franco-Syrian War. Civil administration began in Palestine and Transjordan in July 1920 and April 1921, respectively, and the mandate was enforced from 29 September 1923 to 15th of May 1948 and to May 1946, respectively. The mandate document based on Article 22 of the Covenant of the League of Nations of 28 June 1919 and the Supreme Council of the Principal Allied Powers, San Remo's resolution of 25 April 1920. The objective of the mandate over the former territories of the Ottoman Empire was to provide administrative advice and assistance by a mandatory until such time as they are able to stand alone. The border between Palestine and Transjordan was agreed in the final mandate document, and the create northern border with the French mandate for Syria and Lebanon was agreed in a Palais-Newcomb agreement of the 23rd of December 1920. Okay, that was the Emirate of Transjordan, and this was Palestine. Okay, hold on. I'll be right back in a few minutes. My phone is ringing. One moment. Stay here. I'll be right back. All right. I am back. Can you all hear me? Let me know in the live chat, please. Can you all hear me? Okay. So where were we? So yes, let's continue over here. As you can see, in Palestine, the mandate required Britain to put in effect the Balfour Declaration's national home for the Jewish people alongside the Palestinian Arabs, who comprise the vast majority of the local population. This requirement and others, however, would not apply to the separate Arab Emirates to be established in Transjordan. The British controlled Palestine for almost 3 decades, overseeing a succession of protests, riots, and revolts between the Jewish and Palestinian Arab communities. During the Mandate, the area saw the rise of two nationalist movements, the Jews and Palestinian Arabs. Intercommunal conflict in Mandatory Palestine ultimately produced the 1936-1939 Arab Revolt in Palestine and the 1944-1948 Jewish insurgency in Mandatory Palestine. The United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine was passed on 29 November 1947. This envisaged the creation of separate Jewish and Arab states operating under economic union and with Jerusalem transferred to UN trusteeship. 2 weeks later, Colonial Secretary Arthur Creech Jones announced that the British mandate would end on the 5th of May 1948. On the last day of the mandate, the Jewish community there issued the Israeli Declaration of Independence. After the failure of the United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine, the 1947-1949 Palestinian War ended with mandatory Palestinian fight amongst Israel, the Transjordan annexation of the West Bank, the Egyptian, all Palestine protectorate in the Gaza Strip. Okay, so here it is. So the British plan to establish a homeland for the Jews didn't go as planned. So eventually, to stop the conflict, they came with a partition. This was the partition as in planned. This would be the Arab state, and the rest would be the Jewish state. But that didn't go as planned. So um, eventually we have the situation that we have today. Again, this was a British Palestine passport, as you can see. Yeah, so Palestine was a region in the Ottoman Empire for a long time, and then it actually became a country on the British mandate. There are the papers of it. So after the Second World War, many of the Jews that fled Europe moved to Palestine, and they were submitted to the Palestinian government. Here you can see a coin, Palestine, 1927, Arab and Hebrew. As you can see right over there. Palestine revenue mills. It's a stamp right over here, Arab and Hebrew. 1941 coin. 1927 coin. So when people say Palestine never existed, I'm sorry, what the heck are they talking about? Okay. Here's some old pictures of British troops in Jerusalem. This was the mayor of Jerusalem back then. As you can see right over there. Here's when the Ottomans surrendered to the British. Was the main post office in Jerusalem also. This is today. So yes, people that say Palestine was never real, they're lying. Because as you can see, it clearly was, it still is a real thing today, but the territory has become less. And let's go above. And today, this is of Palestine, this is what left. State of Palestine is what you have today. And you see part of the West Bank and over there. But then the West Bank is occupied for a part by Israel. So I want you to think about this. Okay, so you have one portion where you have Israeli settlements, where Jewish settlements are, and the Palestinian Authority has no authority over there. So let's see. So let me get this straight. So you had um, hold on. You had mandatory Palestine over here, and today you have the state of Palestine, but they only govern these little islands over here because the rest is occupied by Israel. Even though you had the Oslo Accords that agreed that a separate Palestinian state will be established over time for the Arabs. You also have Palestinian Arabs living in Israel itself, nearby. So the settlements in the Gaza Strip were removed in 2005, but they never removed them from the West Bank. So the Oslo Accords, you can see here, this was Arafat, there was President Bill Clinton back then, and the Oslo Accords. But it seems like the Oslo Accords were never fully um, followed through. So this is a little bit the history of the whole conflict. But now, before the Balfour Declaration and what Zionism was going on over there, was something else that happened earlier before that. Let's go all the way back. This is Abdul Hamid II. He was a Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Okay, let's go. Let's look at this. During his rule, Abdul Hamid refused Theodore Herzl's. Remember, I told you about this guy before. He established the modern day Zionist movement, established by him in the 19th century. During his rule, Abdul Hamid refused Theodore Herzl's offer to pay down a substantial portion of the Ottoman debt, £150 million in gold sterling, in exchange for a charter allowing the Zionists to settle in Palestine. He is famously quoted as telling Herzl, a missionary, "As long as I am alive, I will not have our body divided. Only our corpse can divide." So here's another article of it, how Theodore Herzl failed to convince the Ottomans to sell Palestine. Before the British allowed European Zionists to colonize Palestine, its chief ideologue, Theodore Herzl, attempted to buy the land from the Ottomans. And the Ottoman Sultan refused, saying, no, not going to happen. All right. Now, as I mentioned before, there were many plans for a Jewish state. Today, you have the Jewish Autonomous Oblast in Russia that was established during the Soviet Union. You had an Uganda program, tried to turn Uganda into Israel. That didn't work out. The Madagascar plan also. There was a portion of Italy that the north of there's a portion of East Africa that Italy occupied, which today you can say as Eritrea. They want to turn it into Israel, and so and you still have other plans. One plan is still standing for today. Oh, Jewish autonomy in Crimea. So all the Soviets tried to turn Crimea, which today is a portion of Ukraine occupied by Russia, into a Jewish state. So, in short, this is all politics over here. By the way, the plan of the Soviets failed because the British insist on Palestine, which they got eventually. Let's move all of this over here. Yep, let's move all of this. The Balfour Declaration. My question, do you see a stamp of the British government over here? Do you see a signature of the King of Britain or the British Prime Minister? Let me know. You see a signature of this author Balfour, but Balfour. So, but do you see a stamp of the British government, or do you see a signature of the King of Britain? Let me know in the live chat. Do you see that? Do you see a stamp of the British government over here, or a sign or a signature of the King of Britain, or the British, or the back then British Prime Minister? No, you don't. This was just a letter confirming favor, and it was turned into a policy. I mean, just think about it. If Kevin has a farm, and I tell one of my buddies, yo, I'm going to support you to get half of that farm over there that belongs to Kevin, and I write it in a letter towards him, is that a legitimate reason for that friend to go and take the farm from Kevin? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know in the live chat. If I know a guy called Kevin and he has a big farm, and I tell another body of mine, listen, I support you getting half of Kevin's farm, and I write it down in a letter or in a text message, can that text message or letter be justification for that body to go and take half of Kevin's farm? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know. If you're married and some guy on the internet says, hey, that's my wifey, man, and his friends endorse, yeah, that's your wifey, man, is that justification for him to come and take your wife from you? No. So the Balfour Declaration was a type of arrogance and racism by the British government into thinking they have a right to take whatever they wanted just because they say so and they can do so. And this is not anti-Semitism. This is just me stating the facts. I mean, let's say, look, the United States separated from the British Empire in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris. Okay? New York used to be run by the British, used to be British territory. Can a judge in Britain, can a judge, for example, in Birmingham, a city in Britain, make a decision about a case going on in New York City today? Can he do that? Let me know in the live chat. Can a judge in Birmingham, Britain today decide over a situation going on in New York City today? Can he do that? Let me know in the live chat. Okay, Belgium used to be part of the Netherlands. Belgium separated from the Netherlands in 1839. Can a Dutch company, together with some Dutch minister from the Dutch government, decide to build houses for Dutch people in Belgium without consenting with the Belgian authorities, claiming the historical occupation of Belgium? Can they get away with that today? Can a Dutch company together with in harmony with a Dutch government minister, decide to build homes in Belgium today without consulting the Belgian authorities? Can they do that? Selling on to your answers. Can they do that? Let me know in the live chat. Well, why then, if internationally it's agreed that this is Palestine, can the state of Israel decide to build settlements for their people in someone else's land? And by the way, internationally, these settlements are considered illegal. No country in the world recognizes these settlements over here. This yellow part over here, nobody does. But still, Israel refuses to stop. I mean, Mexico cannot go and build Mexican towns in California. The state of California used to be part of Mexico, but Mexico cannot today decide we're going to build a Mexican town in Mexico because the Homeland Security will say, hold on, what are you doing? This is the United States of America. It doesn't matter if there are many Mexican migrants arriving in the state of California. The state of California is part of the United States. They cannot just cross over and build buildings there in the state of California without considering the United States of America. So why is this allowed to continue? As I mentioned before, it has to do with Western hypocrisy. All right. So before I continue, do you understand now why this conflict is so contentious? Hold on, let me close down the sharing of the screen a little bit. Do you understand now why this conflict is so contentious? Because any other country doing what the state of Israel is doing right now, they'll be called up saying, what the heck are you doing? I mean, when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, sanctions followed. Even back then, 2014, when they occupied Crimea, sanctions followed. How come there are sanctions on the state of Israel? This is a bit weird, isn't it? Isn't international law meant for every country to follow? Hold on. I want to read something else with you all. And let me just share my screen again with you. Yes, here, let me share my screen. I want to read this paper with you. It's from the Indiana State University, and you can check it out for yourself. Let me just make it bigger. It's going a little bit of reading. I'm going to read it with you. I want you to pay close attention. The abstract. Zionism is a political geography idea founded on a theory of racial appropriation of space and time. It is centered on a Jewish exclusive inheritance claim over both the territory of the former British Mandate of Palestine and the cultural heritage and genetic material of the biblical Israelites. By the same token, Zionism denies such exclusive inheritance rights to the Muslim and Christian Arabs who are the natives of Palestine. This paper explores and takes issue with the claim. Contemporary Jews are Semitic. It is based on a broad multidisciplinary geographic synthesis of critical findings about the Semitic claim. First, it presents the Israeli law of return as the embodiment of the Semitic claim, and second, it synthesizes the major critical findings about the semantic claim in history, archaeology, linguistics, and genetics. Abstracts is not really a summary, but it kind of shows you what the article is about. Okay, it's how scholars do it. Okay, let's begin. Let me make this a little bigger for you. Zionism is a political geography idea founded on a theory of racial appropriation of space and time. Okay, I reread this before. This Jewish ancestry claim, written often referred to as a Semitic claim, is based on the chain of implicit and explicit assumptions and hypotheses. 1. Palestine is the biblical holy land of Canaan, as included in the territories promised to the descendants of Abraham in Genesis chapter 15 and to the Israelite followers of Moses in Numbers 34. Biblical Abraham settled in Palestine in the 2nd century BC. Biblical Abraham is a patriarch of the biblical Israelites. 4. The biblical Israelites conquered and settled in Palestine in the 30th century BC. The Jews of Roman-occupied Palestine were the descendants of the biblical Israelites. Most Jews of Roman-occupied Palestine were forced into exile. 7. Contemporary Jews are the descendants and sole beneficiary heirs of those Roman exiled Palestinians. It is the natural right to return to one's ancestral homeland even after 2,000 years of real or supposed exile. Because of all the above, there's always been one Jewish people which has constituted a single nation throughout time and space. This is the article it comes from. These are the articles it comes from, or the books. The semantic claim becomes taken for granted when U.S. culture and media echo the following cheerful but serious proclamation of the President of the United States. The children of Abraham and Sarah survived for 2,000 years of exile and persecution, were home in Palestine at last and free at last. President Bill Clinton, 1998. The Zionists wear the Semitic claim on their sleeves all the time and consider it a God-given natural or historic right, which was at last sanctioned internationally by the Balfour Declaration in 1917, the British Mandate of Palestine 1922-1948, the UN Partition of Palestine 1947, and the creation of the State of Israel 1948. The Semitic claim has a legal entitlement under the Israeli Law of Return of 1950, whereas there seems to be an agreement among scholars that the Jews are not a race. There seems to be a consensus amongst the Jews that their claim to Palestine is based on hereditary rights. Even some Jewish critics of Zionism submitted this claim, as indicated by Christopher Hitchens' big-hearted statement. I would never consider asking a Palestinian to move out and make room for me, even though I can be counted as a member of an ancient tribe. According to the law of Moses, the law of Israel law of return, and the Nuremberg laws. Politicians involved in the Arab-Zionist conflict have often stressed the Semitic claim in the political discourse, beginning with the 1919 Weizmann-Faisal Agreement reference to the racial kinship between the Arabs and the Jews, to the cliché, all the children of Abraham, which US presidents often invoke, agreements between Emir Faisal and Dr. Weizmann 2004, go on. In other words, the Semitic claim is the cornerstone of the overall discourse and practice of both Zionist separatism and modern Jewish identity. It is the centerpiece of Israel's fundamental laws and the focus of much of Zionism's academic research and political propaganda. Based on a Semitic claim and the Israeli law of return, the Israeli Minister of Interior issues separate IDs for Jewish and non-Jewish Israeli citizens. Likewise, the Israeli Central Bureau of Statistics collects and publishes annual figures on the demographic balance between Jews and non-Jews in Israel. Chief Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau once warned against a blurring of the lines of the uniqueness of the Jewish people. Today, non-Jewish Israeli citizens cannot belong to the Labour Party branch of their Jewish neighborhoods. In July 2003, the Israeli parliament voted to block Palestinians who marry Israelis from becoming Israeli citizens or residents. Other examples of legal discrimination between Jewish and non-Jewish Israelis include what an Israeli lawyer calls the racist traffic lights in Jerusalem. Nevertheless, in 2004, President Bush wrote to Prime Minister Sharon that the U.S. is strongly committed to Israel's security and well-being as a Jewish state. This paper explores and takes issue with the claim contemporary Jewish are Semitic. It is based on a broad multidisciplinary geographic synthesis of the critical findings about the Semitic claim. First, it presents the Israeli law of return as the embodiment of the Semitic claim. Secondly, it synthesizes the major critical findings about the Semitic claim in history, archaeology, linguistics, and genetics. All right? The Israeli law of return, or the quintessential of the Semitic claim. Though the state of Israel has no written constitution and no defined territorial borders, it has a fundamental law called the law of return and considered the closest thing to a constitution. It was enacted in 1950 in the aftermath of the UN adoption of the Resolution 194 of 11 December 1948, calling for the right of return for the then freshly expelled or displaced Palestinian refugees. The law of return gives every Jew anywhere in the world the right to return to the land of his fathers in Palestine as a citizen of an alleged exile of some 20 centuries. On the law of return, the Israeli government brings Jewish settlers to Palestine from all over the world, including Peruvian Indian converts. What? Peruvian Indian converts? So those Peruvian Indian converts are indigenous to South America. So they have now based on what they say, those are converts. Does this mean that anyone can just convert to Judaism and be considered a Jew and now claim that, oh, it's the land of my ancestors? Okay, let's continue. But the millions of Palestinian Muslims and Christians who were forced into actual exile and refugee camps in and outside Palestine after 1948 are not allowed to return to their homes in 13 cities and well over 500 villages and localities, just because they are not entitled to the Semitic claim. Israel has recently issued a statement reiterating again its rejection of the right to return for the Palestinians now and in case any future peace settlement, both during and subsequent to the political process. The resolution of the issues of the refugees will not include their entry into or settlement within the state of Israel. President Bush and leading Democratic and Republican congressmen have declared their support for this Israeli policy. The enactment of the Israeli law of return, a rest protective law, and its enforcement had effectively turned the Semitic claim into a de facto and de jure exclusive inheritance right, which has legally and effectively entitled 3,237,000 Jewish settlers between 1919 and 1999. This appropriation of the Palestinians' homeland and heritage is officially referred to as the reestablishment of the Jewish people, the resumption of Jewish sovereignty, the redeeming of the land of Israel, and the return of the Jews and the reinvention of Jewish identity to Hebraization of Jewish names. Hebraization of Jewish names. So a lot of those people had no Jewish names, but they just turned it into Jewish names. Okay. The law of return defines a Jew as a person who was born of a Jewish mother or has converted to Judaism and is not a member of another religion. Hold on. So a Chinese guy from mainland China can convert to Judaism, and under this law, they can settle over there, even if they have no direct historical ancestral connection to the land. A returning Jew or Ola becomes automatically an Israeli citizen and national effective on the day of his or her arrival in Palestine. The law of return was amended in 1970 to extend the right of return to the child and grandchild of a Jew, the spouse of a child of a Jew, and the spouse of the grandchild of a Jew. Wow. For example, under this amendment, members of U.S. presidential candidate John Kerry's family can claim the right to return to Palestine and become Israeli nationals because Kerry's grandfather was a Czech Jew named Fritz Kohn, who changed his name to Frederick Kerry before immigrating from Budapest to the United States. Anthropologist Roselle Teckener has pointed out that Israeli law of return is in fact Israel's nationality law. The law of return does exclude non-Jewish citizens of Israel from nationality rights that are automatically given to Jewish citizens of other countries when they choose to immigrate to Israel. Teckener noted that the remarkable absence of the Hebrew word leum, nationality, from the title and the text of the law of return, perhaps to draw attention away from its exclusion of non-Jews and some sensitivity to the well-known concerns about the nationality status and dual citizenship of Jews living in other countries. In the live chat, please don't spam the live chat, and none of you, please. Thank you very much. Okay. The law of return made the state of Israel a unique state whose nationals include only some of its citizens and some of its citizens of other countries. Through the law of return, though the law of return violates the principles of international law embodied in the UN Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Israeli Supreme Court affirms its differential treatment in 1972. Hold on a minute. So the United Nations, of which the state of Israel is a member, they have charters that the state of Israel is violating. So what's nothing done about it? Israeli lawyer Yuri Hupford argues that when using the American Constitution as a yardstick, the Israeli law of return would violate fundamental clause of the First and 40th Amendments. The inherent discrimination of the Israeli law of return against the Palestinians is reminiscent of the inherent discrimination of the Nuremberg laws against the Jews in 1935 and the Jim Crow laws against blacks in 1896. While some Israelis recognize the race and unjust nature of the law of return, the overall Jewish Israeli society does not generate any social political force in support of the right to return for the millions of Palestinian refugees. The Israeli law of return is flanked by the law of citizenship, which states the requirement for citizenship as distinct from nationality under the law of return. I explained you guys before on this YouTube channel, there's a difference between nationality and citizenship. Okay? Tegner argues that authoritative books written by reputable scholars translate the law of citizenship into English as law of nationality, and a mistake occurs throughout translation of the text by the law itself. The term Israeli indicates one's citizenship, not one's nationality. In Israel, you're either a Jew or non-Jew because the state is an extraterritorial nation for Jews, not an Israeli nation composed of Israeli citizens. This unique extraterritoriality of the state of Israel and the overall genesis of geopolitical of Zionism, especially of the British and Soviets promised two distant territories for the Jews, reflects the five complex major bodies of the world Jewish polity, which include one, the World Jewish Congress, the World Zionist Organization, the Jewish Agency for Israel, the Joint Distribution Committee, and the government of the State of Israel. Okay? Additional laws that establish the legal basis for differential treatment of Jewish and non-Jewish Israeli citizens include the Zionist Organization Jewish Agency for Israel Status Law, focus on bringing in and selling Jews in Palestine, and the prohibition of transfer of ownership of Israel lands, which prohibits the transfer of ownership of Israel lands by sale or any other manner. Technon drew attention to the fact that the legal discrimination codified in Israeli law of return countermands the Declaration of Equality expressed in Israel's Declaration of Independence, a document which is not law that had no legal force. In the final analysis of the law of return, is the means by which the Semitic claim has been effectively transformed into a legal entitlement. Because of the obvious injustice of the law of return, Zionist scholarship and political propaganda have issued the fields of history, archaeology, linguistics, and genetics to prove the Semitic ancestry claim of the Jews and eventually justify this unique inheritance right to its extraordinary enforcement, its exceptional privilege and tragic consequence for non-Jewish native Palestinians. Okay, I know this is a little bit of scholarly language. I know you're not all scholars, but in case I need to clarify things, I'll clarify it for you. So let's continue. The Semitic claim is a social construct drawing largely upon the global dissemination of the Bible, the confusion about the origins of contemporary Jews, so the Jews who are alive today. Those are about the historical ones, and the supposed non-Arabian origin of the Israelites. Its modern construction was rooted in the European geopolitics of the Reformation and Counter-Reformation conflict. The Protestants, again, it goes back to Europe, the Protestants stressed Jerusalem and the Palestinian origin of Christianity in order to demarcate themselves from the Catholics, win Jews on their side, and undermine Rome and the pretensions of the Roman Catholicism. In this context came German Martin Luther's Jewish-friendly booklet that Jesus Christ was born a Jew in 1523. English Oliver Cromwell's readmission of the Jews to England in 1655, and the French Napoleon's Jewish Proclamation of 1799 and the Paris Great Synod of 1807, and the establishment of the London-based Society for Promoting Christianity amongst the Jews in 1809. With the Eastern question, European powers were competing to use Jews as a fig leaf for the colonization of the Holy Land in the start of the decaying Ottoman Empire. I addressed this earlier in this live stream. For those who came in late, you can watch the replay later. And the emerging Arab world. In the meantime, the Semitic claim developed a racial turn with French-backed Prussian Jew Moses Hess' obsession with the race struggle and British baptized Jew Benjamin Disraeli's popularization of the new racial term Caucasians. So now you know where the term Caucasians comes from that they use for Europeans. However, American Jewish writer Lenny Brenner argues that the Zionist claim over Semitic blood and Palestinian soil was specifically rooted into the German National Socialist dogma of Blut und Boden. The Semitic claim has also roots in the violent biblical narrative of conquest of the chosen people, promised land paradigm, as well as various social and spatial concepts of Darwinism, including French civilizing mission, English white man's burden, and American manifest destiny, and its justification of European colonialism. Indeed, British Israelism claimed a Semitic ancestry for the English elite, including Queen Victoria, before the proliferation of claimants came to include the Jewish Zionists, the Mormons, Latter-day Saints, the Black Hebrews from Chicago, the Dutch Afrikaners of South Africa, and some white supremacist separatist groups in the United States. The Jewish Semitic claim owes a lot and the Jews, who are historically and ethnically separated and different. You read that? Israelites and Jews are historically and ethnically separate and different. The confusion got worse when a Jewish search for a new identity on the Zionists encouraged the tendency to substitute the words Hebrew and Israelite for Jew, or simply remove the latter from the records. All right? Religious Jews as Rabbi Morris N. Kertzer acknowledges the misty origins of Jewish history, while non-religious Jews must still be in search for answers to puzzling biblical questions such as, can Sarah have a child at 90? Or how could the expression your only son refer to Isaac while Ishmael was 13? Okay, so we can leave this. The confusion further fueled exaggerating Jewish historical independence and presence in Palestine, even when the great Greek historian Herodotus, who visited Palestine around the middle of the 5th century BC, did not notice an Israelite-Jewish presence in that land, nor did exist of a Jerusalem or Judah there to attract attention. King Herod the Great, often presented as a great Jewish king, was of Arab origin on both sides. By the way, you can look this up. He was from Idumea, so from Edomite origin. Isaiah Knopfler noticed that one of the striking features about the Second Temple history is the fact that most Jews, not only in the diaspora but in Palestine as well, never experienced complete Jewish sovereignty. The 8-year rule exception of the Hasmonean family, or Maccabees, considered Jewish, was largely a reflection of the balance of geopolitical power between the Ptolemies in Egypt and the Seleucids in Syria. Moreover, there's no evidence of the Sanhedrin in Jerusalem prior to the Greek rule. Okay? But the most important assumptions encouraging the Jewish Semitic claim reside in the conceptualization of Semitism itself and assumes non-Arabian origin of the Israelites. It is widely known that the word Semitic was first proposed by August Ludwig Schlösler in 1781 in the phrase Semitic languages, but the designation Semitic language was incorrect. Genesis then lists the Canaanites as a son of Ham, whereas the Canaanite languages, including Phoenician and Hebrew, are a major branch of the so-called Semitic languages, according to modern linguistics and the Bible. The Semitic concept is also misleading because the various peoples who came out of Arabia in the course of the past 4,000 years never described themselves as Semitic or Semites. A more accurate label for them would be Arabian or Arabians, since they all apparently came from Arabia, where we call them Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, Canaanites, Chaldeans, Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Labtaeans, or more recently, Umayyads and Abbasids, also known as Arabs. The centrality of Arabia to the origin of the history of Arabian peoples and languages has been overlooked by Western scholarship, even though Herodotus has opened its great history by stating that the Phoenicians, who call themselves Canaanites, came from the Arabian shores of the Red Sea. The Phoenician alphabet and Carthage are perhaps their most tangible footprints. The Bible stresses that King Solomon's wealth of gold and silver has a lot to do with the wealth of Arabian kings. St. Paul became an apostle only after his trip to Arabia. Josephus speaks proudly of the Arabian nation and could not have sealed his religious education without a 3-year seminary in the wilderness of Arabia. Here it talks about Islam too. The Prophet Muhammad's message was centered on the restoration of Millet Ibrahim, or the old religion of Arabia. And the Arabs had elaborate pilgrim rituals centered on Ibrahim's sacred sites in and around Mecca well before Islam. Modern biblical research in Arabia began with Reinhard Dossi's Leserlis al-Lamek and culminated with Kemal Salibi's The Bible Came from Arabia. All right? Perhaps the next step in the above direction of biblical Arabian research would be suggest that the consonantal spelling and origins synonyms of the word BR could be, you know what? Let's see if this is not really that relevant. Let's see, let's go over here. As biblical history increasingly points to Arabia, the history and ancestry of the bulk of contemporary Jews increasingly point to a non-Semitic history and ancestry. First, the claim of large-scale Jewish migration from Palestine to Europe during the Roman occupation of Judea in the 1st century AD lacks historical documentation. It also has been argued that the fact that Palestinian Christianity spread to Europe in the absence of mass migration of Palestinian Christians to Europe suggests that Judaism also could have been taken root in many parts of Europe in absence of a large-scale Jewish migration. Second, the non-Semitic origins of contemporary Jews have been strongly and consistently argued in scholarly works such as Arthur Koestler's The 13th Tribe, the Khazar Empire and its heritage. I'm going to talk about the Khazars later on in this live stream. Okay, so please wait. Michael Blatt has chosen people from the Caucasus, Jewish origins, delusion, deceptions, and historical role in the slave trade, genocide, and cultural colonization. And Paul Wexler's 4 books. Well, you can check those yourself. Spanish Jews came originally from the north, and many North African Jews came from Spain. The failure to produce historical documentation for the Israelites in Palestine or to document that contemporary Jews were descendants of Jewish migrants from Roman-occupied Palestine opened the door wide to biblical archaeology in Palestine. So do you guys understand what's saying over here? What it's saying over here is that the claim that the Ashkenazi Jews or the Ashkenazi people are directly descendants of those Israelites or Judeans that lived under Roman occupation, that proof has never been delivered. That's what it's saying over here. But as was mentioned before, in the Israeli law of return of today, converting to Judaism alone is sufficient. So, question becomes, if contemporary Ashkenazi Jews, because there are also Sephardic Jews, Ethiopian Jews, I know that, but if modern day Ashkenazi Jews, if they have no ancestral link to Semitic peoples, then okay, then you need to ask yourself, why insisting is their homeland if there's no ancestral link to that land? That's a bit weird. I mean, look, the Roman Empire governed Britain for about over 3 centuries. Can a citizen of Italy today go to Britain to, let's say, to Wales and claim a plot of, let's say, I'm coming to my homeland because this used to be governed by my ancestors? No, we can't do that. People think, what the heck? First of all, the UK is not even part of the European Union anymore, and even then, you can't just come in as an Italian settling in Wales just because maybe some ancestors of yours were involved in governing this area over 2,000 years ago. Nobody would get along with that. Okay, let's read further. Biblical archaeology found no trace of the Israelites. Okay, let's continue. Zionist historiography asserts that archaeology in Israel has provided a valuable link between the country's past and present, with thousands of years of history unearthed at some 3,500 sites. Yet these unearthed sites did not show evidence for the biblical Israelites in Palestine. This was the conclusion repeated by leading American, British, Arab, and Israeli researchers in biblical archaeology and history. Biblical archaeology was initially led by Johns Hopkins University professor of Semitic languages, William Foxwell Albright, who came to Palestine in 1919. He must have been encouraged by the politically correct atmosphere created by the Balfour Declaration of 1917 and the British occupation of Mandate Palestine 1917-1948, as well as the subsequent creation of the State of Israel in 1948. His research aimed at devoteling Israelite history with profane history and scientific rationalism and evangelical faith. He was anchored at the American Schools of Oriental Research, founded in 1900 and renamed Uprooting in 1970. But a couple of decades after his arrival in Palestine, Albright could not hide his disappointment with the potential of the whole enterprise of biblical archaeology in Palestine. The scholar finds himself in an anomalous position as soon as he turns from Egypt and Mesopotamia to Palestine and Syria. Virtually all his comparative data from the former land are derived from written documents and mural reliefs, whereas nearly all the material from the latter consists of building remains and artifacts without writing or pictorial representation. This candid observation continues to provide the best epistemological explanation for the failure of biblical archaeology to prove that Palestine was actually biblical land of Canaan. Now, I don't want to go too deep into this. You can read it for yourself further. It's a big article, and you can find it online yourself. But earlier, it mentioned about the Khazars. Okay? I want to go into that right now. Okay. Khazars and the Khazar Khanate. Khazaria was a country that existed in what we call the early Middle Ages. As you can see it over here. And but I don't focus on everything about the Khazars. Let's focus on the following. Okay. Let's read this. Some of the Khazars, namely the Kabars, joined the ancient Hungarians in the 9th century. Let's read this. The ruling elite of the Khazars was said by Judah Halevi and Abram ibn Dod to have converted to Rabbinic Judaism in the 8th century. But the scope of the conversion to Judaism within the Khazar Khanate remains uncertain. Okay, let's continue. So let's read this. Where the Khazar spirit of the fall of the empire is subject to many conjectures. Proposals have been made regarding the possibility of a Khazar factor in the ethnogenesis of numerous peoples, such as the Hazaras, Hungarians, the Kazakhs, and the Cossacks of the Don region, and of Ukraine, the Muslim Kumiks, the Turkish-speaking, you can go on and on and on. The late 19th century saw the emergence of the theory that the core of today's Ashkenazi Jews are descendants from hypothetical Khazarian Jewish diaspora which migrated westward from the modern-day Russia and Ukraine into modern-day France and Germany. Linguistic genetic studies have not supported the theory of a Khazar connection to Ashkenazi Jewry. Theory is still finds occasional support, but most scholars view it with considerable skepticism. The theory is sometimes associated with anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. Okay, that's the ad a lot of people have towards it today. But let's continue. As we know that Khazariya was a country, was an empire, and a portion of the people converted to Judaism. So they were not Israelites or descendants from the tribe of Judah. Those were proselytes. A proselyte is one who converts. Okay? Look, for example, if I go to mainland China, and I integrate in mainland China, I might even get a Chinese passport. and get the Chinese nationality. Does that mean I'm ethnically Chinese? No, I will not be. I'm just the one that integrated over there. Or let's talk about the Buddhists. There's no such thing as a Buddhist homeland. Buddhism is a philosophy and also a religion. If you convert to Buddhism, does that automatically mean you have a claim to, for example, Thailand? No, it doesn't. Even if, let's say, Thailand has a big Buddhist population. Let's say Thailand is considered a Buddhist nation. If you are Hispanic and you convert to Buddhism, does that automatically mean you have a claim to Thailand because Thailand is the home of your ancestors? No, it doesn't. Now let's continue. So you can check this out for yourself. I'm not going to all of it with you because of the limited time here in the live stream. I want to keep it below 2 hours. The thing is, there was a big migration of Hungarians and Khazars also more into what they call Central Europe. And a lot of the Khazarians also moved, and there were a portion of them who converted to Christianity and Judaism. So you could do your own research for yourself. If I end up being wrong, I'm wrong. I can take it. As a scholar, I'm going to take it if someone falsifies something I said. But you can clearly see that Khazarians, the Khazar Khanate, which spreads the Ukraine and Russia, moved in the West, into medieval Europe. A lot of them became Christians, but others became turned to Judaism. So that means that a big portion of the Ashkenazi Jews, because Ashkenazi comes from Ashkenaz. Ashkenaz is the ancestor of the Germanic peoples. The Germanic peoples are descendants of Gomer, to his son Ashkenaz. So the term Ashkenazi means from Ashkenaz, means from the Germanic peoples. So if you're from the Germanic peoples, that means you're not Semitic then. That means you're from the son Japheth, that son of Noah. So the Ashkenazi Jews, based on this history, their origins is the Khazarian Khanate. Now again, because Judaism has a lot of converts in it, you also had other people that joined the Khazarians. So I'm not saying that every Ashkenazi Jew, by definition, is only of Khazarian ancestry, but a big portion of them are. So that means that they have no claim to Palestine historically whatsoever. So this is just history. Okay, you can look it up for yourself. Okay, there's no conspiracy theory. Check it out for yourself. Okay, you can go into literature yourself also. And I found this digital pamphlet online, and I wanted to read this with you. There's a question: who are European Jews? It said there is no easy answer to what defines someone's identity as Jewish, as there are cultural, ethnic, religious, political, family, and personal implications. Jewish refer to both a people and a religion. Considerations on who is a Jew depends on self-identification and other societal aspects. According to the Jewish law, a person born from a Jewish mother or any person who has gone through the process of conversion to Judaism is Jewish. Jews have been present in Europe as early as 990 BC. There are no reliable and comparable data on the number of Jews in Europe, but the current Jewish population of Europe is estimated around 2 million. Okay? So even here they say there is no actually Jewish nation, whatever. Okay. There's a book you can check for yourself. You can either buy it or you can borrow it at the library. Okay, you can see it right over here. And this is something I want to point out to you. In Judean and Jews, Daniel R. Schwartz argues that we need both terms in order to reflect the dichotomy between the tendencies of those, whether in Judea or in diaspora, whose identity was based on the state and the land, Judeans, and those whose identity was based on the religion, and culture. So Judean and Jews are completely different. Judean refer to the people that lived there under Roman occupation and where their ancestry are going all the way back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jew refers to a culture and a religion that's in association with the Judeans. But it doesn't have to mean you are a Judean. All right? Check the book for yourself. Okay? So I want you to understand, as a scholar, you go through data and you connect the dots. Okay? And as a scholar, you admit there may be more out there you're not aware of yet. So let's go further. For example, you find source on the internet. For example, here you find an actual book by a scholar. You can purchase it or borrow it at a university library. I recommend you to borrow this book or purchase and read it for yourself. You also find, secondary work like this, which are not published by an academic, academic institution directly, but something does not have to be published by an academic institution for it to have credibility. Okay? And I'm not going into this very much, but there are also people mentioning now. Okay, let me read it. By the way, I'm not associated with this website like that. I just found it today while I was doing research. Okay, so I don't endorse everything they're saying. Just to be clear. Okay. Okay, let's read this. In his classic Facts Are Facts, Jewish historian and researcher and scholar Benjamin Friedman writes, Jesus is referred as a so-called Jew for the first time in the New Testament in the 18th century. Jesus is first referred to as a so-called Jew in the revised 18th century editions in the English language of the 14th century first translation of the New Testament into English. The history of the origin of the word Jew in the English language leaves no doubt that the 8th century Jew is the 18th century contracted and corrupt English word for the 4th century Judaeus, found in St. Jerome Volker edition. Okay? And this goes into how in the King James Version, the term Jew came in much later, in later editions. So the term Jew is relatively new, while Judean is Judaeus is more old. So I want you guys can look into that yourself, because remember, I'm not here to give you all answers. I'm not God, I'm not the Heavenly Father. I just want to point this out to you that this whole Israeli-Palestine conflict, it goes beyond October 7th. It goes beyond Hamas, which is just a political organization and not all Palestinians, some people claim. It goes more than just Jewish settlements, illegal Jewish settlements on the West Bank. This, because as I mentioned before, this the state of Israel was the result of the British colonization of Palestine after they took it from the Ottoman Empire, and the majority of people living there were Arabs, and there were also Jews already there. There were also Christians there, also, and they wanted to build a homeland for what they called the Jewish people, not Judean people, not Judeans, Jewish people. Big difference. But how do you build a homeland for a religion? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing right now. Hold on, where can I stop sharing? Stop screen sharing. Okay. Understand here. I did not say that I'm against the existence of the state of Israel. I didn't say that. If you claim that, I block you immediately from my from my channel immediately. I did not take any side, Palestinian or Israeli side. I didn't do that. I looked at the history, I looked at the anthropology, the sociology, the politics. And the question I have now, can you build a homeland for a religion? If you claim a homeland is based on someone's ancestry, that means only the descendants of a specific tribe or specific people should have a claim to that homeland. Look, a Chinese individual migrating from mainland China to the United States of America, they can get American citizenship, but they cannot claim an historical line to the United States of America. Okay? For example, Europeans migrated in big amounts to the United States of America in the 19th century. At the time of the independence of the United States, there were not that many Europeans there in North America. There weren't. Okay? Now, so in the last 200 years, a lot of Europeans migrated to North America. I seldom use the term white people because white is not an ethnicity nor a nationality. Okay, so the European Americans, their origin is Europe. Whether someone is a quote unquote white Australian, white New Zealander, white South African, white Argentinian, or white American, whatever, their ancestral origin is Europe. Now they have some background there because for a few generations they've been living there, but they can never claim this is the home of my or now they have some ancestors over there, those some generations, but ancestrally speaking, their base is Europe. And that's why those post-colonial states like Australia, New Zealand, the United States, and Canada are a bit controversial. Also because of the genocides and massacres that were done by people of European descent onto the indigenous peoples in North America and also Australia and those other places. But you see where I'm going with this. Indigenous Americans have a claim to North America. If an indigenous American goes to Europe, they cannot have an ancestral claim over there. They cannot. So, for example, I was born in Curacao. Okay, I have ancestors going back to Haiti. I have ancestors going back to mulattoes in Venezuela, which there is some Portuguese ancestry in it. And most of my ancestry goes back to Western Africa, and some ancestors going to the indigenous people that were there before Columbus in the Caribbean. I have a little bit of Portuguese ancestry. Can I go to Portugal today and say I'm Portuguese? Hell no. If they say Portugal's for the Portuguese people, I cannot go there and say I'm Portuguese if I only have a tiny bit of ancestry going back over there. You see what I mean? I mean, if I go to Venezuela today and say, hey, my paternal grandfather was from Venezuela, here's his pictures and that, they'll say, oh, good for you. You still need to integrate and become a citizen. Even though the ancestral line is very close, if I go to Venezuela today, I can't just go there and say, you guys are entitled to give me some land because I'm from here. They wouldn't accept it. So, you see what I'm saying? Even when it comes to ancestry, if there are many generations in between, you can't just go back and say, I'm from here, give me something. It doesn't work like that. I'm not a Buddhist. If I would convert to Buddhism, I can't go to Thailand and say, hey, I belong here in this Buddhist neighborhood. People say, yes, you're a Buddhist as a religion, but you're not really from here. How do you build a country for a religion? Because again, a big portion of Ashkenazis were proselytes that converted and became Jewish over time through the culture. So they were proselytes. So you can't look at, and so if you look at ancestry, you can look at ancestry, but you look at the ancestry of the proselytes. Let's say 20 million people today would convert to Judaism. Based on that, 20 million people can just go on the airplane and say, this is my land, Israel, give me citizenship, give me this and that. Oh, you have some Palestinians living over there, break those houses, man, because I need that land over there. What? Listen, there is a solution for what goes on there in Palestine now. Middle East was a term invented by the British Empire. It used to be called Northeastern. It used to be called Northeastern Africa or West Asia. But Middle East is a term, political term of the British Empire. And as I explained to this live stream, the current conflict with Israelis and the Palestinians is a result of racism and European colonialism. Now, I'm not advocating for all the people from European descent that are living there, because a lot of those Israelis were European descent, straight up. I'm not saying they all have to be removed to Europe. I'm not saying remove all those Ashkenazis to Ukraine. I'm not saying that. Some people say I'm not. What I'm saying is the Israelis are living there now. They have to integrate in the region. Look, if I would move to Vietnam, I'm in a Southeast Asian nation. I need to adapt to the culture and the customs of that Southeastern Asian nation. I cannot go to Vietnam and insist on an Hispanic attitude. If I want to insist on Hispanic attitude, I should stay within Latin America. Okay? Also, if someone from Vietnam cannot move to Mexico or to Scotland or to Ukraine or to whatever and insist on this Asian attitude. No. When you live somewhere, you need to integrate into that location. And what has happened now is that a lot of the Ashkenazis settled in Palestine, and after the state of Israel was created in 1948, this codependency on the West remained. And remember, the British Empire collapsed soon after that. So there is no British Empire anymore. So instead of the British Empire, the United States became their quote unquote big brother that looked after them. So the Israelis developed this codependency on the West. But here's the thing: they're in the middle of Arab world. How can you be in the middle of an Arab world and hold on to anti-Arab policies? What are you doing? You need to have harmony with the people where you live. So the Israelis there need to integrate into the region. Just as the Palestinians are integrated there, they've been there for centuries. And what I see happen is that I foresee that the two-state solution will be implemented and that the Israeli settlers on the West Bank, by the way, those settlements are illegal according to international law. If those Israeli settlers want to stay in the West Bank, they'll have to integrate into Palestinian society, into Palestinian society, accept the Palestinian Authority. They'll have to do that. Just like the Palestinians who have Israeli citizenship in Israel are getting along with the Israeli administration, the same way the Israeli settlers in the West Bank have got along with Palestinian administration. It's fair enough. I mean, if the Palestinians living in Israel and not in the West Bank or in the Gaza Strip, if they get along with the Israeli administration as Arab Israelis, how come that the Israeli settlers on the West Bank don't get along with the Palestinian administration? It doesn't add up. So that's what's happening. There should be mutual integration over there. This whole racist, ethnocentric supremacy thing that the British supremacists over there needs to stop. Because there's no basis to maintain this. It's unsustainable. Well, that's what I have for now. Again, do your own research. I recommend you do your own research in this. And to be frank, I'm not pro-Israel, absolutely not. And there are obvious reasons why. Just look at the current events, also look at history, there are a lot of things over there. I'm not obliged to be pro-Israel either, because the Israel they established in 1948 is not the biblical Israel of the Bible. That's for certain. And there are a lot of churches claim that 1948 was fulfilling biblical prophecy. No, it's not. Because according to biblical prophecy, if the Israelites got their land back, there will be demilitarization worldwide. But since 1948, things militarized a lot in the world, especially over there. So that shows you it's not biblical prophecy. And by the way, if it talks about the Israelites, mean the actual people getting their land back, it talks about the descendants of those people, not people that converted generationally, like the Ashkenazis did. So this is just history. Hey, take it or leave it. That's up to you. Do your own research. I want you to do your own research also. I want you to participate in finding the truth. Okay. So solution is mutual integration. Okay. That needs to happen for the Palestinians and for the Israelis. Mutual integration. Without mutual integration, this will continue for another few decades. A lot of unnecessary bloodshed. Okay. Nobody benefits from that. And if there are any anthropologists and sociologists watching this, and you're willing to collaborate in coming up with a plan or a policy proposal for mutual integration for the state of Palestine and state of Israel, hey, please email me, hit me up, we can talk together. Okay, I'm willing to be part of the solution, as all believers should be. All right, just be real. That's what I expect you to be real. I don't come with some supremacist European attitude. Okay, thank you. So, if there are any anthropologists and soldiers out there who are willing to contribute to mutual integration of both the state of Israel and the state of Palestine, for both the Palestinians and Israelis together, hit me up. We can talk. And if there are people from Palestine watching this, I'm willing to collaborate with you for solutions. Just hit me up also. God is good. Are there any questions about this topic? Well, for the whole topic of Israel and Palestine, you can have to do your own research. It's a very big one. But the topic of the day was the Balfour Declaration. I explained how Zionism and Western hypocrisy led to the conflicts of the day, and also gave a proposal for a solution, which is mutual integration. Are there any questions about that topic? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know. Are there any questions about that topic? I'm a little below 2 hours, which is good. I'm happy with that. Because I know a lot of people have a short attention span, so I don't want to make 4, 5, 6 hour live streams. I want to keep them to 1 hour, sometimes 1 hour and a half, and with exceptions, like now 2 hours. Are there any questions about this topic? Let me know. Listen, whether you are a Jew or not, I couldn't care less. You are a human being. That means you're a descendant of Adam. Every one of us was born in sin. We all need to be born again and serve Christ. Okay? And about this whole thing going on right there, there needs to be mutual integration. If you're willing to contribute to that, hit me up. We can talk. I'm willing to use my anthropological and sociological knowledge and leverage to contribute to that. But don't come with this blood talk, this Amalek talk that those Israeli politicians are coming up with. Don't come with a talk with that, because you'll be blocked and accursed immediately, just so you know. Okay? We don't do that blood talk, genocide talk over here. We don't do that. Any other questions about this topic? I know it's a lot of information I went into, quite some sources, and you may need some time to process this, understand that. Listen, I want you to know what you're dealing with. A lot of those European Christians, or say white Christians, are pro-Israel based on what's expected of them from their church, or based on the perception that those Ashkenazi Jews are white. So because a big portion of Israelis are considered white, they say, oh, there are people, white people, so we need to support them, so we are pro-Israel. So they have racial loyalty without checking what they're involved in. You shouldn't have that. If you're involved in something, you should know why you're involved in it and if it's even worth to be involved in it. I mean, there are a lot of black movements out there that I'm not part of. There are a lot of African or black movements out there that I don't even want to be part of because the movements are corrupt. I even criticize Black Lives Matter for legitimate reasons, and I'm an anthropologist. I know how movements operate, and I know what kind of impact movements have. So when I criticize the Black Lives Matter, I didn't do it out of malice. I did it out of the goodness of my heart to show that there was something wrong with that movement. So just because people are similar to me in ethnicity or nationality doesn't mean I automatically support them. Okay? Who created the UN? The United Nations began as the League of Nations. I can show it to you. The League of Nations was a cooperation as was a collaboration as. Okay, let me show it to you very quickly. Um, the League of Nations was the first worldwide intergovernmental organization whose principal mission was to maintain world peace. It was founded on the 10th of January 1920 by the Paris Peace Conference that ended the First World War. The main organization ceased operation on the 18th of April 1946 when many of its components were relocated to the new United Nations. So you had the League of Nations before, and that slowly was turned into the United Nations. Okay? So we were involved, Britain was involved, France was involved, of course. Yeah, those two main, because you still had the British Empire and French Empire back then. And this 1921, and member states of the League of Nations, and these were the members over time. So the British and French went at the First World War, and slowly more countries joined, as you can see. And later, the United Nations, let's go up. Let's go to the origins. Yes, it was after the, how should I say, after the Second World War was over, and that more integration was needed in international politics, that it turned the League of Nations to the United Nations. Here, the League of Nations became the Covenant of the League of Nations, and it had 4 permanent members: United Kingdom, France, Italy, and Japan. And then it turned to the United Nations. So it was actually it kind of developed over time. All right. Okay, no other questions? All right. Thank you all for being here. Keep on agreeing with Christ. And whether you're Palestinian or Israeli or you're from any other ethnicity, Christ is Lord. He is supreme. Him we need to follow. Remember that. Again, enjoy your weekend. For those that keep the Shabbat, enjoy your Shabbat. It's about to start. And I will see you next live stream. God is good all the time. Shalom.